28 years later is finally here. It feels like it's been 84 years since the last movie came out in this series, but if you're like me and you didn't watch the original 28 Days Later until a few months ago, it feels like it just popped up and it's here now and it's already gone and no one's talking about it. Why is nobody talking about this movie? 28 Years Later is by far the best movie of 2025. Well, so far. 28 Years Later is the newest film from acclaimed English filmmaker, director, madman, Danny Boyle, and he's back. He's ready to do the unthinkable, something no one would expect, something people have never seen before. He's made another zombie movie. However, 28 Years Later is not your typical zombie movie. In fact, it's the exact opposite. I think people are going to get mad at this, and they already have. I think this is going to push people away. I think what Danny Boyle is doing here is subverting expectations, and he's playing around with the world that he created, the original 28 Days Later. And what we have is an amazing, emotional, moving piece of art that just happens to have zombies in it. To briefly recap, 28 Years Later should not be confused with the original film 28 Days Later. This came out 23 years ago. 28 Years Later is also not the first actual sequel that this series has gotten. 18 years ago, a movie called 28 Weeks Later came out. This served as the actual direct sequel to the original 28 Days Later. Most people choose to not talk about this one. I've not seen it. I know it stars Hawkeye. There's also a movie called 28 Months After floating around out there, but this looks more like some unofficial BS bootleg type of situation, ripoff. I don't know what you want to call it. I've got to be totally, completely honest here. I was very skeptical of 28 Years Later in the lead up to the film's release. Like I said, I had not seen the original 28 Days Later until just a few months ago, so I really had no skin in the game. I didn't have anything to really anticipate or look forward to. As a movie fan, though, I knew that Aaron Taylor Johnson was in this new movie with, Danny Boyle directing, Alex Garland writing, Jodie Comer. These things are the things that excited me and drew me to the movie. But overall, I was not a fan of this franchise. I had nothing attached to it. I just knew a new movie was coming out that was zombies. Starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, okay, and Jodie Comer, okay, and then Danny Boyle directing, well, that's exciting. Alex Garland writing, ooh, not so exciting. But I'm glad to say my expectations were completely blown away.
And now you're ready for a night on the town.
Homer, you've got it set on.
Bozo and mode are two words I used to describe this movie when I was writing my Letterboxd review, and really, I don't know a better combination of words to describe 28 Years Later. I think in a lot of ways that 28 Years Later is kind of like this year's Furiosa. One, I think that people are going to underestimate it for being a legacy sequel, kind of like I did. Out of the people who are going to see it, I think some people might be turned off by the way the film looks too. A lot of people had criticisms for Furiosa. Not me, but a lot of people. Both are extremely digital looking films, both heavily processed, almost as much as McDonald's. One could almost describe Furiosa looking like a cartoon. It was super slick, super smooth. 28 Years Later is very digital too, but
smooth would be the wrong way to put it.
Lots of shots in this movie look like they were filmed through the bottom of a cracked beer bottle. Others look like they were filmed with a camera that had been submerged in sand for like 2 decades. Now, of course, 28 Days Later is infamous for the way it looks. It's incredibly digital. It's really dirty and scuzzy, and it feels kind of like on the fly, even though it wasn't. It almost feels like a documentary of sorts, like you're following these actual events as they happen. The quality and the resolution of the clips just aren't what they would be in a movie. This feels like real. Well, 28 Years Later cranks the digital knob to 11, delivering a hyper-real look into this nasty, nasty world. I also think that Furiosa and 28 Years Later both take what works in the respective original films and completely flip them, making them more controversial to audiences while simultaneously being infinitely more interesting. At least to big brain guys like me. Neither one of these movies are really going to do that well at the box office. I think we all know what happened to Furiosa. Tragedy. Each one of these movies deserve to make like $1 bajillion. It's just not going to happen. It's not the type of movie that does that. But hey, they at least got $50 from me. As the title suggests, 28 Years Later is set 28 years after the original film. In 28 days, this rage virus managed to spread throughout London. In 28 years, this virus has mostly been eradicated throughout Europe, but it's left a small group of survivors kind of quarantined and stuck in the British Isles. Our main characters, Jamie, Isla, and their 12-year-old son Spike, all live on the secluded island of... This island connects to Great Britain via a causeway, which is only usable during low tide. 28 Years Later starts simple enough, kind of as a coming-of-age story. After years of training and living on this island, it's now Spike's turn to make a name for himself and to essentially become a man by venturing onto the mainland and snagging his first kill. Spike's father, played by a perfect Aaron Taylor Johnson here, takes him on this first expedition. However, this is a zombie movie. Things quickly go south and the two are forced to abandon their original plans. They have to survive out on their own in the wilderness. Things get crazy, things get crunk, things get lit. The pair do eventually get to return to their little Minecraft village, but it's rough and it's ugly. And the two's relationship is forever changed. See, in order to make Spike look like a hero and kind of save face about this entire trip, Jamie lies about his son's bravery and overall killing capabilities. Spike is given multiple chances to take out an infected, and he kind of just chokes and freezes at the wheel. Spike realizes,
oh, hey, maybe my dad and this entire setup is not really what I thought it was.
This all leads to Spike further questioning his mom, played by Jodie Comer, who is bedridden with some unidentified illness. Spike eventually has a heated encounter with his dad before setting back off to the mainland, this time with his mother, as he attempts to diagnose and treat her sickness. This is, in general, the main premise of 28 Years Later, but there is a lot going on under the hood. The entire film still is very much a coming-of-age story, but 28 Years Later has its cake and eats it too, throwing all kinds of concepts and ideas and disgusting images at you at just insanely fast speeds. While 28 Years Later as a whole pretty much blew all of my expectations out of the water, it's the film's emotional core that really surprised me. Yeah, the original 28 Days Later certainly had some good character moments and really heart-wrenching scenes. That eyeball scene will live in my head forever. But Boyle and Garland do something really interesting and different for this legacy sequel. Jim's goal in 28 Days Later was survival. Avoiding death was the name of the game, as is par for the course for most zombie-related media. 28 Years Later flips this conceit on its head entirely. Our characters aren't just living with death, they are forced to accept it. After all, what else is left for people to do in a world decades deep in a zombie apocalypse? To embrace death is to accept the world. Memento mori. I recall seeing someone on Twitter call 28 Years Later the last Jedi of the franchise, and this is both pretty funny and an apt analysis of the film itself.
I applauded it for being different!
It broke new ground!
Alex Garland, the writer of this movie, seeks to both expand and subvert expectations audiences bring with them when it comes to a zombie movie. Accepting death isn't just a central point of this movie, it is the point of this movie. Lots of people die in zombie apocalypses. This isn't anything new. We're used to seeing people get eaten alive or fight to the death over food rations in zombie media. What if the thing that kills your mother is cancer? Illness is the driving force in 28 Years Later, much like the two films prior. However, it's cancer that's the killer. Spike isn't just trying to survive a world of zombies that are out to get him. He's forced to reckon with the fact that his mom, himself, all of us, will die, whether we're bitten by zombies or not. The final act of 28 Years Later is a complete kick in the back of the legs, ditching the adrenaline-pumping action seen throughout the first two-thirds or so. Things really slow down as Spike is forced to confront death and, in turn, a world without his mother. This all comes after he abandons his father following their altercation back at home. With the death of his mother and the rejection of who his dad is, Spike is reborn and now actually, for the very first time, completely alone in this big, scary world. Yeah, 28 Years Later might have emotional depth and great characters and great character moments and arcs and all of these things and scenes that make you want to cry.
Boring.
At the end of the day, 28 Years Later is a zombie movie. Things need to look cool. Things need to be cool. Cool things need to happen. And luckily, they do. I'm not kidding when I tell you there are several scenes and shots in this movie that left my jaw on the disgusting AMC theater floor. Stuff I didn't even think was possible to make in a movie. Stuff I didn't think would ever look good in a movie. Parts of 28 Years Later look like they were ripped right out of Elden Ring, especially that causeway chase at the end of the first act. This is by far one of my favorite scenes in the movie. One, because it's incredibly intense. I think a lot of people, myself included, assumed one of the two characters here were going to get axed. Having no idea a kid was even in this movie, I assumed Spike would be a goner. Another part of me thought ATG might get infected, thus setting up some redemption story arc for Spike where he has to, get revenge for his father. Neither one of these situations happen. Instead, Spike and his father both survive, but just barely. I also love the scene because of the way it looks. I'm not a geographical expert, so I can't explain what to call it, but there's some sort of Aurora Borealis thing happening in the background as the two characters run away from the zombie. There are colors in the sky. There is this incredible moonlit water scene happening in front of us. Most filmmakers would set this scene to be incredibly scary and intense, and it is, but the way everything is chopped together in the edit almost makes the chase feel triumphant. Like this is a good thing for Spike and Jamie to go through. I think now's a good time to quickly bring up the movie's score, which is produced by a group known as Young Fathers. As someone with a vague familiarity to the group already, I was really excited to discover they were behind this music because I loved it. It's a perfect match, not just because of Young Father's Scottish background, but the energy and the diverse sounds they bring to the 28 Years Later franchise, movie, whatever you want to call it, is just one of the many reasons it's an unforgettable cinematic experience here. Specifically, the music that plays during this causeway chase scene is magical. There's this slow string orchestra that builds and builds and eventually morphs into like a bouncing techno rave beat and then goes back to the strings again. It's wild, and it adds so much to the scene. The entire movie is backed by excellent music and sound design that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. However, like I said, stunning visuals, interesting things to look at is the most important piece of the puzzle here, and 28 Years Later is drowning in them. Blood, bones, male anatomy. Boyle throws anything and everything at the camera and in turn audiences. There's real care and effort put into this movie, despite it feeling really chaotic, to not only make the infected feel real, but also very dangerous. Boyle stretches the bounds of digital filmmaking to their absolute extreme here. There was lots of talk and buzz about Boyle using iPhones to film 28 Years Later, and I have to say I was very skeptical of this approach. Not because I don't have faith in the iPhone, I certainly do. Sean Baker famously used an iPhone 5S to film Tangerine, and that movie looks gorgeous. I just initially felt reluctant about the whole 28 Years Later being shot on iPhone thing because it felt like more of a gimmick or a way to advertise and sell this movie. So what? I thought to myself. Why should I care if this sequel to a film that's like 3 decades old is being shot on iPhone? Why does this matter? Why is this cool? The iPhone doesn't just give the film a distinct look, it completely changes the way it feels and moves. Boyle is able to do some wicked stuff here. There's a moment near the beginning that shows how the head of a deer ended up not being part of the rest of the deer's body, and it's brilliant. It's all told in like a side flashback, basically from the POV of another tree during the moment. The scene is coated in harsh digital red filters, almost like it was shot in infrared. I don't know, maybe it was. There's another really great scene where a camera is placed on the back of a super fat zombie as it crawls toward the main characters. It's really creepy and invasive, and it feels really real and disgusting.
And stories feel perfect and powerful, because here, they are.
I also need to mention the kill cams. Yeah, the kill cams. Whenever a projectile makes contact with a zombie in this movie, it replays that impact. Super video gaming. I mean, it's like COD kill cam level stuff here. This happens almost every time a zombie is killed. I'm not quite sure about the rules. Maybe it doesn't count if you're using a metal bow or something that you picked up from someone else. I don't know, but it's wicked cool. Here's a photo of the rig they used to achieve this technique. The UK has also never looked so lush and inviting, but at the same time super cold and harsh and unrelenting. There's hills that look like they would be the place where Teletubbies call home, but the valleys contain all the ugly bits, abandoned chapels, rusting gas stations, and wide open fields full of zombies. I talked a lot about this film's emotional core, but 28 Years Later is as much a visual treat as it is a narrative one. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm not the only person just completely dumbfounded by the ending of this movie, however. Our main character Spike is seen alone in the woods at the end of the movie. However, the scared, unsure boy that started the film is gone. Spike has been reborn, like I said, forced to reckon with the world he's living in and how it loves to take things from him. However, 28 Years Later continues to throw punches until the credits start rolling. We see Spike sitting here, cooking a fish. This is presented like the ending of the film, which makes sense. However, another round of infected start approaching him, and he's forced to abandon his little campsite. Oh, another action scene? I guess the movie isn't over, I thought to myself. How dumb. How stupid was I? A little idiot. Of course, 28 Years Later was going to end with a stinger where a group of warriors all dressed like Jimmy Savile do front flips and slice up zombies with ninja swords. What? As an American, I have to admit I know nothing about Jimmy Savile other than the name and the fact that he's a super bad, disgusting dude. I don't know, my British friends, he was a huge player in the entertainment world, and it's kind of impossible to explain his impact to people who didn't live in Europe. But this guy is a nobody to me. What the is 28 Years Later even trying to say here? I have no idea, and I don't think anyone else does either. The implications are very strange, but get even weirder when remembering this is an entirely different UK than the IRL one. What is this world's view on the disgraced celebrity? Is he even disgraced here? Why is the guy from the beginning of the movie dressed like him? Lots of questions, no real answers. At least for now. 28 Years Later is actually the start of a new trilogy, something I'm just now learning. This sounds like a joke, but the next movie comes out in like 5 months. However, it's Nia DaCosta coming in to direct this movie instead of Danny Boyle. I have to say this really does worry me, as Boyle was clearly the reason I got so much out of 28 Years Later. But I'll still definitely be seated to see how this absolutely bizarre sequel teaser pays off. In any case, I do have a great idea for a themed popcorn bucket next time around. By the time you're watching this video, 28 Years Later has already been out of theaters for quite some time. There might even be an actual real-life zombie outbreak. But I do recommend that you check this out on Prime or Netflix or Freevee or Streevee or Candy or Plumstock or Slucko or any other streaming service of your choice.